I stood in my new living room running my fingers along the freshly painted walls. At 32, I had finally done it. Bought my first house all on my own. No help, no advice, just me and my savings. I wanted to surprise my parents with my achievement, thinking they would finally see me as the responsible adult I had become. When I called them over for the reveal, their smiles turned to something else entirely. Great. Now your brother will have a home office, and his kids will have more space. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe if this story resonates with you so far. Growing up in my family, I always felt like I was living in the shadow of my older brother Jackson. He was the golden child who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. While I struggled to get a mere nod of approval for my achievements, Jackson would receive endless praise for the smallest accomplishments. My parents, Martha and Bill, never tried to hide their favoritism. When Jackson got married to Sophia and had 2 kids, Emma and Noah, it was like I became even more invisible at family gatherings. Despite this dynamic, I worked hard to build my own path. I majored in computer science and landed a job at a reputable tech company as a software developer. Over the years, I climbed the corporate ladder through dedication and late nights. I never received financial help from my parents, unlike Jackson, who got assistance with his wedding down payment for his house and even regular babysitting for his kids. For 6 years, I lived in a cramped 1-bedroom apartment, saving every penny I could. My friends often invited me to expensive trips or suggested I upgrade my living situation, but I had a goal. I wanted to buy my own house completely independently. This would be my achievement, something no one could take away from me or claim credit for. The house hunting process was exhausting. Every weekend for 8 months straight, I visited properties, talked to real estate agents, and crunched numbers. I lost count of how many houses I toured that were either way above my budget or needed major renovations I could not afford. There were moments of disappointment when I lost bidding wars or discovered hidden problems in seemingly perfect homes. Then finally, on a rainy Sunday afternoon, I walked into a 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood about 20 minutes from downtown. The moment I stepped through the front door, something felt right. The living room was flooded with natural light from large windows. The kitchen was recently updated with modern appliances, and the backyard, though small, had a lovely patio, perfect for summer barbecues. The previous owners had maintained it well, so there were no immediate repairs needed. I made an offer that same day slightly above asking price to beat out other potential buyers. 3 anxious days later, my real estate agent called with the news I had been waiting for. My offer was accepted. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork inspections and finalizing the mortgage. I did not tell my parents, or even Jackson, about any of this. I wanted to see the looks on their faces when I revealed that I, the supposedly less successful son, had achieved this milestone completely on my own. The day I got the keys was one of the happiest of my life. I stood in the empty house, keys in hand, and took a moment to appreciate what I had accomplished. This was my space, my sanctuary, a place where I made the rules and could create the life I wanted. I spent the next 2 weeks painting, buying essential furniture, and making the house feel like home. I hung artwork that I loved without worrying about anyone else's opinions. I set up a home office in one of the bedrooms and planned to use the 3rd bedroom as a guest room for friends who might visit. Once the house was presentable, I decided it was time for the big reveal. I invited my parents over for dinner, telling them I had some exciting news to share. I even prepared a special meal, cooking my mom's favorite lasagna recipe. I bought a bottle of champagne to celebrate and set the table with the new dinnerware I had purchased. Everything was perfect. In my mind, I imagined their proud faces, perhaps even tears of joy, as they realized their younger son had accomplished something significant. When the doorbell rang that Saturday evening, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. I opened the door to see my parents standing there, curious expressions on their faces. My mom held a small houseplant as a gift, and my dad was looking around, clearly trying to figure out where I had brought them. "Casey, whose house is this?" my mother asked as she stepped inside, her eyes scanning the foyer. "It is mine," I replied, unable to keep the pride from my voice. I bought it. Closed 3 weeks ago. There was a moment of silence, and then the reaction I had been hoping for. My mom gasped, and my dad's eyebrows shot up in surprise. You bought a house? Without telling us? My mom sounded genuinely shocked. I wanted it to be a surprise. I explained, gesturing for them to follow me on a tour. As I showed them around, they seemed impressed at first. My mom commented on the spacious kitchen, and my dad nodded approvingly at the new water heater in the utility room. But as the tour continued, I noticed a shift in their reactions. They were no longer seeing the house as my achievement, but as a resource for the family, specifically for Jackson and his family. This second bedroom would be perfect for Jackson to use as a home office, my mom said, walking into the room I had set up with my desk and bookshelves. He has been complaining about working from the dining table since they converted their spare room into a nursery for Noah. Before I could respond, my dad added, and this third bedroom could be split. Put a divider down the middle and Emma and Noah each get their own space when they visit. Smart thinking, Casey. I stood in the doorway, my excitement deflating like a punctured balloon. Actually, this is my office, and the other room is for guests. My parents exchanged a look I knew too well. It was the same look they gave each other when I announced I wanted to study computer science instead of business like Jackson, or when I said I was moving to an apartment downtown instead of staying in the suburbs near them. Well, you do not need 2 extra bedrooms for just yourself, my mom said in that tone that suggested I was being unreasonable. Family should help each other out. Jackson has been so stressed with the kids growing and needing more space. This is my house, I said firmly but politely. I bought it for me. My dad put his hand on my shoulder, his voice taking on that patronizing tone. Son, when you have a family of your own someday, you will understand the importance of supporting each other. Right now you have more space than you need, and your brother has less than his family needs. I guided them back to the dining room, hoping to change the subject with dinner. But as we ate, the conversation kept circling back to how my house could benefit Jackson. My mom was already planning which furniture would work best in the kids' room, and discussing color schemes that Emma and Noah would like. When I gently reminded them that this was my space, my achievement after years of saving my mom, looked genuinely confused. But why would you need all this space just for yourself? It seems wasteful when your brother's family is cramped in their house. They have 2 growing children. Jackson and Sophia bought the house they could afford, I replied, just like I did. That is different, my dad interjected. They have responsibilities. Children are expensive. The implication was clear. Because I was single, my needs were less important. My space was considered excess that should naturally be given to my brother's family. The pride I had felt in my achievement was being systematically dismantled, replaced with the familiar feeling of being secondary in my parents' consideration. As we finished dinner, my phone buzzed with a text. To my shock, it was from Jackson. Mom says the house looks great. We will drop by tomorrow to check out the space for my office and the kids' rooms. I looked up at my parents. Did you tell Jackson he could use my house? My mom nodded like it was the most natural thing in the world. Of course. He is family. We invited them to join us tonight, but Sophia had a migraine, so they will come tomorrow instead. I felt my temper rising, but managed to keep my voice steady. You should have asked me first. This is my house, and I get to decide how it is used. Do not be selfish, Casey, my dad said, his voice hardening. It is not like you will ever have a family of your own at the rate you are going. At least let your space be useful to someone. That comment hit like a physical blow. Not only was my achievement being co-opted, but my future was being dismissed as lonely and childless. The dinner ended awkwardly with my parents leaving with promises to return the next day with Jackson and his family to sort out the arrangements. The next day, Jackson, Sophia, and their kids showed up at my door unannounced. Emma, who was 7, immediately ran inside, asking which room was hers. Noah, at 5, was already carrying a box of toys. Sophia gave me a quick hug, whispering, "This is so generous of you, Casey. The kids are so excited about having space at Uncle Casey's house." Jackson walked in with a tape measure and notepad. "Hey bro, great place. Mom was not kidding about the size of that second bedroom. Perfect for my office setup. I stood there speechless as they moved through my house like they already owned it. Sophia was taking measurements for curtains in the kids' room, and Jackson was discussing with his wife where his desk would best fit in my office. The kids were running around pointing at walls, declaring which posters would go where. "Jackson," I finally said, pulling him aside while Sophia was distracted with the children. "We need to talk. Mom and Dad seem to have given you the wrong impression. I did not buy this house for you to use." My brother looked genuinely confused, but Mom said you had all this extra space and were happy to help out. We were thinking we would use it on weekends, and maybe when I need to focus on work without distractions. "That is not what I want," I said firmly. "This is my house. I am not setting up an extension of your home here." Jackson's expression changed from confusion to annoyance. "Come on, Casey. Do not be like that. You have always been so particular about your stuff. Learn to share a little. You are an uncle, remember? Family helps family." "I do help," I countered. "I babysit when you need it. I bought them expensive birthday gifts. But this house is mine. I worked hard for it." The conversation was interrupted when my parents arrived carrying bags of groceries. "We thought we would make lunch for everyone," my mom announced cheerfully, heading straight to my kitchen like it was her own. What followed was one of the most surreal family gatherings of my life. Everyone except me was acting like this was the new normal. My parents had already told Emma and Noah they could leave toys permanently in their room. Jackson had brought a small filing cabinet he planned to leave in his office. My mom was rearranging my kitchen cabinets to make them more functional. When I objected, I was either ignored or treated like I was being unreasonably difficult. The final straw came during lunch when my dad handed Jackson a copy of my house key. "Where did you get that?" I asked, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "We had a copy made yesterday," my mom explained casually. "It just makes sense for Jackson to have access. What if you are away, and they need to use the space?" That was the moment something snapped inside me. Years of being the less favored child, of having my boundaries ignored, of being expected to sacrifice for Jackson, crystallized into a moment of absolute clarity. This pattern would never end unless I ended it. "Give me the key," I said, holding out my hand to Jackson. "Do not be ridiculous," my dad started, but I cut him off. "This is my house. I paid for it. I did not ask for your help with the down payment like Jackson did. I did not ask for decorating advice or furniture. This is my achievement, and you are all treating it like community property." The table fell silent. Even the kids stopped eating, sensing the tension. "You are being selfish," my mom finally said. Jackson always needs," I interrupted. "And Casey always gives. That has been the family dynamic since we were kids. But not with this. Not with my house." Jackson stood up, his face flushed with anger. "You have always been jealous of me. Just because I have a successful family life and you are alone." "I am not alone," I said quietly. "I have friends who respect my boundaries. I have colleagues who value my work. What I do not have is family members who see me as an individual with my own life, instead of an extension of yours." What followed was an explosive argument that had clearly been building for decades. My parents accused me of being ungrateful for all they had done for me. Jackson brought up times in childhood when I had supposedly been favored. Sophia tried to play peacemaker, but ultimately sided with my brother. Through it all, I maintained my position. My house was not going to become Jackson's second home. They left in anger. My mom in tears. My dad not even looking at me. Jackson slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. The kids were confused, and I felt terrible about that part, but I knew this boundary was necessary. I thought that would be the end of it, that they would be angry but would respect my decision. I was wrong. 3 days later, I came home from work to find Jackson's car in my driveway. Using the key my parents had copied, he had let himself and a delivery person in. They were moving a desk into my home office. My office had been partially cleared out, my things piled haphazardly in a corner. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "Blocking the delivery person from bringing in more furniture." "Setting up my workspace," Jackson said casually. Mom and Dad think you just need time to cool off. We agreed I would start using the office a few days a week, and you will get used to the idea. I asked the delivery person to leave, which they did, after an awkward moment of looking between Jackson and me. Once we were alone, I made myself absolutely clear. Take the desk and leave. Now, this is breaking and entering. I did not give you permission to be here or to move my things. Do not be dramatic, Jackson scoffed. It is just family helping family. I took out my phone. Leave now, or I am calling a locksmith to change the locks, and then I am calling the police to report you for trespassing. Jackson finally seemed to realize I was serious. He left, but not before warning me that I was destroying my relationship with the entire family over a stupid house. That evening I had 3 locksmiths come to my house, one for the front door, one for the back, and one for the garage. I had all the locks changed and the security code to the alarm system reset. I then sent a group text to my parents, and Jackson, I have changed all locks and security codes to my house. No one is to enter without my explicit invitation. This is not negotiable. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My phone exploded with calls and texts, not just from my immediate family, but from aunts, uncles, and even cousins. Apparently, my parents had told everyone I was having some kind of breakdown and was cutting off the family. My Aunt Susan called to tell me how disappointed she was in my selfish behavior. My Uncle Paul texted that I needed to man up and support my brother. Even my cousin Taylor, who I had always been close to, seemed to think I was overreacting. The pressure was intense and constant. Every day brought new calls, new guilt trips, new attempts to make me see reason. My mom showed up at my workplace for lunch crying in the cafeteria about how I was tearing the family apart. My dad and Jackson together came to my house one evening, pounding on the door, demanding I let them in to talk sense into me. Through it all, I held firm. This was my house, my boundary, my life. For the first time I was putting myself first, and while it was painful, it also felt necessary and long overdue. The holidays were approaching, traditionally a time when our family gathered at my parents' house. This year I received no invitation. When I called my mom to ask about Thanksgiving plans, she coldly informed me that I was welcome to join, only if I fixed things with Jackson first. By fixing things, she meant giving him a key to my house and allowing his family to use it as they pleased. I spent Thanksgiving with friends instead, a potluck dinner at my coworker David's apartment with several other holiday orphans. It was different but surprisingly enjoyable. No walking on eggshells, no comparison to Jackson, just good food and genuine conversation. Christmas was harder. I had always loved our family traditions, and being excluded hurt deeply. I received a text from my mom on Christmas Eve that simply read, "There is still time to make this right." But making it right in her eyes meant giving up my autonomy, and I was no longer willing to do that. Instead of dwelling on what I was missing, I volunteered at a local shelter serving Christmas dinner. There, among strangers giving their time to help others, I found a different kind of holiday spirit. I met Alicia, another volunteer, who had also set boundaries with her family and was navigating the holidays on her own terms. We exchanged numbers and began a friendship that would prove valuable in the months ahead. In January, I started seeing a therapist named Dr. Marshall. In our sessions, I began to unpack the family dynamics that had shaped me. Dr. Marshall helped me see that my parents' behavior followed patterns from their own upbringings. My dad had been the Jackson in his family, the favored child whose needs always came first. My mom had been trained to prioritize her brother's needs over her own by her parents. They were recreating what they knew. Understanding this did not excuse their behavior, but it helped me see it with more clarity and less personal pain. I was breaking a cycle that had existed for generations. As winter turned to spring, I settled into my house and my new reality. I built a group of friends who respected my space and my boundaries. I joined a hiking club, started taking cooking classes, and even adopted a dog from the shelter where I had volunteered at Christmas. I named him Max, and he became the perfect housemate, happy to see me when I came home, but not trying to take over my office or rearrange my kitchen. Then one day in April, I received an unexpected text from Jackson. "Can we talk just us? No mom and dad." We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. Jackson looked different, somehow smaller and less confident than I remembered. He ordered his coffee and sat across from me, fidgeting with the sleeve on his cup. "Sophia and I have been seeing a marriage counselor," he began, surprising me. "We have been having problems for a while. The house thing with you brought a lot of issues to the surface." He took a deep breath before continuing. "The counselor pointed out some things about how I interact with people, especially family. She suggested I might have some entitlement issues stemming from how Mom and Dad raised us." I remained silent, letting him talk. "I never saw it before, Casey. How different things were for us growing up. How much was just handed to me while you had to work for everything. The counselor asked me to try seeing things from your perspective, and it was uncomfortable to say the least." He looked me in the eye for the first time since we sat down. "I am sorry. I had no right to your house or your space. I was acting exactly like I always have, assuming my needs trumped yours because that is what I was taught." His apology was unexpected and seemed genuine. We talked for over 2 hours. Really talked, perhaps for the first time as adults. Jackson shared his own frustrations and insecurities, how the perfect life that everyone thought he had was actually stressful and sometimes overwhelming. I shared my experiences of always feeling second best, of having my accomplishments minimized. It was a start. Not a complete resolution, but a beginning of a new kind of relationship between us. My parents took longer to come around. They maintained their position that I was being selfish and breaking up the family for months. It was not until Jackson and Sophia took their side of the story to family therapy and then invited my parents to join them that things began to shift. 6 months after the blow-up, my mom called and asked if she could visit. Just her, no one else. When she arrived, she did not try to come inside, but asked if we could sit on the front porch swing. She looked older somehow, and very tired. "Your father and I have been talking to a counselor with Jackson and Sophia," she began. "We have been learning some difficult things about ourselves and our parenting." She twisted her wedding ring around her finger nervously. "I never meant to make you feel less important than your brother Casey. In my family, that was just how things were done. The oldest son was the priority, and everyone else adjusted around him. I never questioned it until now. It was the closest thing to an apology I had ever received from her." We talked for almost an hour, really talked about expectations and boundaries, and love that comes with conditions versus love that does not. When she left, she hugged me tightly and whispered, "I am proud of you, for the house, for standing up for yourself, for everything." My relationship with my family was forever changed, but perhaps in ways that were ultimately healthier for everyone. Jackson and I began to build a relationship based on mutual respect, rather than the old dynamics. My parents learned to see me as an individual with my own life and needs, and I learned that setting boundaries, while painful in the short term, can lead to more authentic connections in the long run. My house truly became my home, a place where I made the rules and lived on my terms. I hosted dinner parties for friends, created a vegetable garden in the backyard, and eventually converted that third bedroom into a music room where I returned to playing the guitar, a passion I had abandoned years ago. Sometimes Jackson and his family visited, but always with advance notice and respect for my space. Emma and Noah enjoyed coming to Uncle Casey's house for movie nights or backyard barbecues, but they understood it was a place they visited, not a second home. The journey was not easy or straightforward. There were setbacks and difficult conversations along the way. But through it all, I held on to the truth that had emerged from this conflict. Loving someone does not mean sacrificing your own needs or boundaries. Real family supports each other's independence and growth, not just when it is convenient or beneficial to them. As I sit here on my patio enjoying the evening breeze and watching Max chase fireflies in the yard, I can look back on that difficult time with perspective. Standing my ground was one of the hardest things I have ever done, but also one of the most important. It changed not just my relationship with my family, but my relationship with myself. I learned that I deserve to celebrate my achievements without them being coopted for someone else. I learned that saying no is sometimes the most powerful form of self-care. If you are facing a similar situation with family members who do not respect your boundaries, know that you are not alone. It is okay to claim your space, your achievements, and your right to live life on your own terms. The path may be difficult, and some relationships might be strained or even broken in the process. But the freedom and peace that come from being true to yourself are worth it. Have you ever had to stand up to family pressure to protect something important to you? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. Your story might help someone else finding the courage to set healthy boundaries. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to put themselves first sometimes. Thank you for listening, and remember that your life is yours. To live your space is yours to claim, and your boundaries deserve to be respected.